Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for Science Division Live. My name is Ian Miller, and I'm excited to tell you a little story about the Snowmass Project, otherwise known as the Snowmastodon Project. And this is a bit of a retrospective, and I really want to celebrate the project, and in particular, the people that helped make it happen. To start, a little bit about me. If I can get my slides to advance. So I'm there on the left. Again, my name's Ian Miller. I'm the Director of Earth and Space Sciences at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And this is my brother, Dane, who also got a degree in paleobotany. So I'm also the curator of paleobotany, and he has a degree in paleobotany, off doing data science now. But there are two paleobotanists in one family, which is pretty amazing in its own right. But I'm there on the left, and I'm a paleontologist here at the Denver Museum. And I've had this amazing career with this group of colleagues here at the museum doing incredible field work around the American West and really the world. And here with my colleague, Dr. Joe Cerdich, working in the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, doing this really incredible remote and crazy field work here, this truck just teetering over the edge. We did get it out, thankfully. And in this sort of oversized landscape, here we are digging fossil leaves out of a hillside there in the Caipora. It's about 75 million year old fossil plants. And so my job is really to understand the world's forests and really how they came to be, the evolutionary history, the sort of threads that got us to the present day evolutionarily when it comes to the world's forests. And I've been fortunate to have this take me around the world, also again with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Joe Cerdich, here with our late preparator, Mike Getty, in Madagascar, trying to tell that story from the perspective of, in particular, evolution on an island continent. And our curator, David Kraus, leads this work in Madagascar. And most recently, an incredible discovery here in Colorado that we call the Colorado Springs Project, where we found a treasure trove of mammal skulls after the extinction of the dinosaurs. And this here on this picture was captured on camera of a young teen science scholar, Aon Way Smith, discovering the world's oldest legume. So alongside these amazing vertebrates was this incredible collection of plants, including at this time, the world's oldest legume. So through my time here, I've just been really focused on not only the science and the research and the collections, but also training the next generation of students. And here's our former super van in Earth Sciences with a crew of teen science scholars on top. And the other key piece about being a scientist at a museum is really the informal communication of science. And here's a wonderful example of one of our visitors behind the scenes getting to put her head in the mouth of a saber-toothed cat. That certainly would have been exciting for me at that age. Had I been in that spot, that would have been really fun. But I want to make this point that the museums sit at this sort of interesting confluence, and I've been very fortunate as a museum professional to sort of play in this world, and that confluence really is a combination of the culture of the place and the people that occupy that place, around the past peoples as well as the current peoples that occupy that place around the Natural History Museum. A major bastion of education in the community, of course, preserving the material that is found, and that's really the data. We're sort of the libraries of the planet, if you will, and then conducting science on that. And finally, one of the key pieces being entertainment and getting people excited about the science and inspiring them to be scientists themselves. And that's sort of the confluence of the Natural History Museum. So I've been at the Denver Museum for 15 years, and I just found out about a week ago that I will be joining the National Geographic Society as their chief scientist and innovation officer. And this is actually the National Geographic flag that flew at Snowmass when we were there for the Snowmastodon Project. And then the title of my presentation, if I could turn back time, was sort of a shout out to the timeless icon Cher and one of her albums. But I just have been in this moment, of course, for the last couple of weeks, thinking about all the things that have come in the past through this amazing institution in Denver and where I might be going next. And in this moment, I really want to talk about this incredible project called the Snowmastodon Project that played out over the years 2010 and 11, sort of in the public, and then for us at the museum through 2014. But I would posit that maybe a project like this could only happen at a natural history museum, and I want to explain a little bit why that is the case. So first, I want to take you up to Snowmass, and the truth of the matter is I'm not going to be able to tell you this whole story. This story takes about 2 hours to really do justice of all the incredible science and sort of threads of all of this weaving together into this gorgeous story. But I'm going to give you the highlights. So here's the ski resort at Snowmass Mountain. And right over here on the right-hand side, hopefully you can see my cursor, but that white spot on the hillside is an ancient ice age pond filled up as a reservoir in this moment and covered in ice. But it just shows you where this sort of ancient ice age pond is, and it's above the town of Snowmass. So here it is in the summer, and the idea was that Snowmass bought it from a family, the Zeiglers, and they were going to drain it, dredge it, and redam it, and then sort of increase the storage of water so that if everybody flushed their toilets at once in Snowmass, it didn't drain all the water out of the community. But really, they wanted to have some extra storage for snowmaking and a few things like that. It was a little bit more mundane than the toilets. But at any rate, this whole project started, as it often does in paleontology, with a construction worker. And this is Jesse Steele. He's a third-generation bulldozer driver. There's his bulldozer in the background. And he was bulldozing along on the late afternoon of October 14th, 2010, and he turned a couple of bones up on the front of his bulldozer blade, which turned out to be the bones of an ancient mammoth. And what he was actually doing here was he's digging down through this muck and sort of a clay sort of cap and down into this ancient peat where these bones were. And here's just a sample of those. This is what he turned up with that bulldozer blade. And this is at the water and sanitation offices down there in Snowmass. And there was this incredible outpouring of the community. They saw something like 3,500 people stream through their tiny offices there in Snowmass, wanting to see firsthand what Jesse had turned up. So this kicked off what turned out to be one of the most remarkable fossil discoveries and digs in U.S. history, and arguably the biggest in Colorado history, given a few constraints like how long it played out and that kind of thing. But what he had found was this incredible animal. This was the elephant of North America. This is the Columbian Mammoth, and they are more closely related to the Asian elephant than the Asian elephant is to the African elephant. They were just our elephant, and they went extinct about 12,000 years ago here in North America. So for this to work, for a project of this scale, which turned out to be absolutely enormous, and I'll give you a little bit of a sense of that, but we have this incredible team of volunteers here at this museum, and we really celebrate our volunteers, and because of the work that they contribute to the institution. It is sort of the secret sauce of making it all work. And this is one of our department parties just in the earth sciences. So mind you, this is just a slice of the remarkable volunteer corps that stretches across the institution. And so I'm going to click through a bunch of portraits here of some of the folks that joined this. You could just get a sense of the number of people. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. And if you're one of these folks watching, you might see your mugshot up here. But these are just sort of the folks that had signed up for the dig over the course of many weeks. And here they all are on site over the course of after the discovery in 2010, we designed a huge dig in 2011. And here are the teams on site systematically going through these ice age sediments that are just completely full of ice age bones. So it wasn't always beautiful and sunny like that. So here's a great example of what it looked like when we showed up on site in this case in 2011. You can see me here with my back turned. This was sort of my job the whole time, was sort of watching everybody do incredible work. I really learned how to lean on a shovel. That became a part of my specialty. But I got to run this project with this fellow here. We don't get to see his face, but he's now the director of the Smithsonian. His name is Kirk Johnson, and the two of us ran this project together. And it was remarkable in terms of what people had to contribute to make this happen. And so this is one of our volunteers, Mark Hunter, sort of playing the role of the Corps of Engineers, directing all the meltwater off of the site. And it was a mess. So this is an intern here covered in mud and people are getting stuck left and right. That's Dr. Joe Cerdich, our curator of dinosaurs. He showed up on the first day of the dig in 2011. Was part of his hire at the museum was to come and start digging Ice Age bones the minute he showed up. And some more of our staff just getting stuck. So you can get a sense of why maybe some of the animals ended up stuck in this site and becoming fossilized in this ancient Ice Age pond. So the bones are spectacular. I mean, here I'm going to show you some glory shots of some of these things. And here's a beautiful humerus. And we have all these wonderful moments with people finding bones. We're finding as many as 300 a day. And we called these the Flintstone Moments, being able to lift these bones up and sort of celebrate these wonderful discoveries time in and time out. And there again is Joe holding the femur now of a mastodon, a distant relative of the mammoths, but also one of the most common, and in fact, the most common fossil at the site. Again, Mark Hunter, he seems to show up twice here now, but holding the leg bone of a giant mastodon, which is now a sculpture on the steps of the museum. So this whole discovery led to about 5,500 big bones, something like 40,000 tiny bones. This is just the megafauna. There's something like 40 or 45 different species of little tiny things, all the shrews, the snakes, the fish, birds, that kind of thing. But the big guys, these are the megafauna. We had sloths and bison and deer and Ice Age horses and camels, mammoths, and mastodons. This became the most prolific mastodon find anywhere in the world. So about 35 mastodons were found in the pond there at Snowmass. And in fact, we only dug about a quarter of the lake out. So you can imagine there's about 4 times as many of these guys buried still underneath the sediments up there in Snowmass. So here's where the museum sort of really gets a chance to come in and help tell this story, right? Where they can bring to bear the incredible team of educators and really push the mission of the museum to inspire the community to be stewards of the world around them and to be scientists themselves. So we put in this amazing Ice Age Discovery Center, which ran for about 8 years up in Snowmass. Tons of clever presentations. In this particular one, this is Jill, and she's calling back on the ice stone for kids in the audience, where we had where we had set up a sort of a canned call, and she could call on her phone and call back to the different animals in time and talk to them. And of course, reaching all the little kids. So here's a fun dig site at one of the festivals that we ran, and it looks like that hard hat's a little large for that little tyke there, that's for sure. And then sharing this with the media. So here we have an incredible team of media specialists at our museum, and they are on site and helping us tell this story. And so here they are in the truck, and there they were in blowing snow before. And just an example, this is where it was much nicer the following summer, probably approaching July or something like that. But literally 2-way broadcasts from the sites out to the world, mostly to school kids. And we had the opportunity to work with National Geographic and Nova to put together a cool documentary, which ended up being called Ice Age Death Trap. I highly recommend you go and check it out. I'm sure you can find it on Nova's or PBS's website if you're interested. And Kirk and I wrote a book talking about the entire discovery and sort of the whole arc from Jesse's discovery all the way to once the things were sort of buttoned up as best we could in the building before the science really started to kick off. And we were also engaged in a traveling exhibit. So the traveling exhibit on mammoths and mastodons came to us, and we embellished it with all of the cool Snowmass fossils. So just to give you a sense of what that exhibit looked like, just a little window into that. Again, to reach the people of Colorado with this incredible science. And then finally, we were given an incredible sculpture of the world's largest mastodon. This mastodon is called Portaloo, which is named for the fact that it had a couple of temporary porta potties over where it was buried on the site. And we had a Kiwi, a New Zealander on the site, and he kept calling those things the Portaloos. And once we picked them up and moved them, we found the world's largest mastodon underneath. So, which is pretty incredible. Formerly, it was Matilda, I think, from Florida, but now it's Portaloo, who is this incredible beast that's immortalized in bronze on the corner of the museum today. And alongside all of that, in addition to this incredible outreach to the community and all of this sort of internal work between the staff, the scientists, the educators, the administrative side of the museum, which is sort of the glue which keeps everything together, we worked with scientists to tell this story. And we had about 50 scientists and these different topics of geochronology and stratigraphy, the vertebrate paleontology, and even ancient DNA, the paleobotany, which is, of course, I'm a part of, and palynology being the fossil pollen, and then the micropaleontology, all these little tiny like midges and things like that. If you're a fly fisherman, this site was filled with fossil aquatic insects that the fish were eating. And they all together, all of us together, told this story of climate change in the high Rockies and how these animals came to the site and died and were buried. So this site was formed about 140,000 years ago. It was a beautiful open lake, deep lake, about 130,000 years ago. Began to fill with collapses of the edge of the lake. Animals were coming to it as a watering hole, dying on its shoreline, and their bones were being tumbled into the lake. It eventually filled to become a peat bog, and a few critters, in particular, this one we named Snowy. She was about a 14-year-old female Columbian mammoth, went out and got stuck in the middle, and that was the original discovery. That's who was found first when they kick off the entire dig. And then it was capped with some kind of clay. You saw that original photo of the clay. That's the top of the Tupperware. It's the Tupperware sort of analogy to seal this all in. Then from 45,000 years ago to the present, it became a meadow. The Zeigler family bought it, turned it into a sheep field and a little trout pond later. And then we came in and dug all of the bones out of one corner of it so that water and sanitation up there in Snowmass could put in a new dam and impound a new lake that's a little bit deeper and can supply the town with water. But there's still an incredible treasure trove of Ice Age fossils. You can see our little bison skull sitting down here underneath that water. And it's there on ice, so to speak, until the next team decides to go up there and dig some more, take another scoop out of the bowl, if you will. And so this is what it looks like today. Beautiful ecosystem. You know, it's the high Rockies in the spring. If you know the high Rockies in the spring, beautifully green. And there you're looking at the ski resort in the summer and all the wildflowers in the foreground. And of course, the filled in reservoir now at the present moment. So I just want to finish with this idea that that museums are this confluence that sort of bring all these things together and make incredible things like this happen. So again, we're sort of that confluence of culture and education, preserving all these amazing treasures for everyone, and conducting science on them and opening up the doors so others can conduct science on it. And then really engaging in the entertainment side of things so that we can bring people in, get them excited and inspire them, not only to be scientists themselves, but also to protect the natural world around them. That's sort of my 2 cents on what I think the Natural History Museum is now after being in one for 15 years. And anyway, I just hope you enjoyed spending a little bit of time with me and hearing a little bit about Snowmass and all the people who contributed to making it happen. Again, just the tip of the iceberg. It was one of these things that's just sort of remarkable, and but it only happened because of this museum and the people in it. So thank you very much, and I think I'll open it up for questions.
Hello again, Ian, and hello everybody watching on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Memory Williams. I work in the marketing department at the museum, and I'm just popping in like I always do to read your questions to our presenters. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them right in the comments on Facebook, right in the comments on YouTube, and we will get them to Ian. I hadn't seen too many just yet, but I have a question, Ian.
Okay, please.
Let me make sure this is. Oh, well, I'll read this. We just got one from Taylor who asks, so my family and I loved the health exhibit when it came out and still love it today, but I feel it's in desperate need of update and renovation. Will it get an update soon? Oh, you mean Expedition Health. Okay, will that be getting an update soon?
Yeah, well, that's sweet to ask. You know, I can't answer that being the paleontologist, but that's okay. That's I hope so.
Yes, we
Yeah,
hope.
yeah.
Exhibition Hope is really great.
It is amazing, yeah. And
Yes.
yes, sure, there's some carpet that needs to be fixed here and there and stuff like that. And I'm sure that will happen.
I actually have one question that I thought of, and I hope you didn't answer this while during your presentation, but I thought it was interesting how you're saying kind of like the museum took their little scoop out of Snowmass. I wonder why one organization doesn't come and just dig out all the bones. Why do we only take a portion and then say leave the rest for someone else to discover? Is there a certain reason for that, or?
Yeah, we had that one scoop we took was so overwhelming.
Okay, yeah,
It was so much stuff. And our mission really was to save all of the fossils that would have otherwise been destroyed by the dam being put in place. So we didn't want anything to be buried permanently. And it also turns out that the fossils, once they're back underwater and the sediment is wet again, that sort of preserves them forever. They'd been preserved there for 130,000 years, and they were still in really, really good shape when we found them. And we found two that on the edge where we were digging and things were starting to dry out by the end of the dig, that it wasn't the best thing for the fossils. So you can imagine that the rest of the lake, which is, it's not huge, right? It's only like 10 acres or something, and we dug maybe an acre or two out, which was a tremendous amount of dirt. But at the end of the day, the rest of those bones are sort of on ice, if you will, is sort of the phrase we like to use. But they really could be dug by another institution again. It could be dug by our institution if we so chose. But to mobilize something like that, or in fact, arguably nothing like that has ever been done before, is sort of a short-term paleo dig over a period of about 12 months. It ended up being close to probably 500 people who came through, and just the resources that needed to make that happen. And of course, the entire museum had to get behind it. So that's a big decision to make. And what's fortunate is that when the dam was put in, the Water and Sanitation District essentially paved a road to the bottom of the reservoir, with the idea that they could drain it and we could go back to work someday, or somebody else could. And it turns out it takes like 3 or 4 days to let all the water out of it. And then you just have to pump it all back in from a stream that's well below the lake, which is not cheap. It's a pretty big expense, but you could do it. You could do it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see Leslie's asking too. They left it open for us to come back in the future. So yeah, that's one reason.
Yeah.
I was wondering that too. And then if we don't see any more questions coming in, we'll let this be our last one. This is just for me.
Yes.
For your 15-year career, and I hate to even ask you this because how can you pick one? What has been your most favorite project or idea that you've worked on since you've been here?
Yeah.
I hate to even do this to you, but I have to ask.
Thank you. I mean, there's so many, and it's just the collaboration that occurs at the museum is remarkable. And I'm going to cheat a little bit and say there's two.
Okay.
So I think from us, there's these amazing scientific projects that we do, and this Colorado Springs thing is going to generate science for decades to come. But I think just being a part of the Snowmass Project and everybody teaming together to pull that off was truly remarkable. And the museum essentially anticipating how amazing it was going to be and just making the decision to jump in was phenomenal. And it was the first thing like that I'd ever done, and it still is the biggest thing. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, and took every ounce of everybody's beings to make it happen. So that was amazing. And then I think the thing that's so that's sort of on the science side, and then the thing that's sort of most important on the museum side is this work that we did a number of years ago that we called the Community Collaboration Project. And the idea was to really reach out to the communities that the museum serves, and to understand how we can be a better partner with our communities, and to really, so that they can see themselves in us, and vice versa, and really to help us continue to be that cornerstone of the community. And so that work is ongoing, of course, and it's probably a lifetime of work, but I was so fortunate to play a role when it kicked off. So I'd say those two things.
Awesome. Well, I will say we will definitely miss you. I mean, your impact here has been huge, even in my short time of being here, just about a year and a half. So it's been a true treasure. Thank you for being with us so long. And this is, sadly, I'll say this too, Ian's last Science Division Live. So this is a truly great moment. Thank you so much for joining in on all the presentations you've done for us. And yeah, best of luck, many wishes, many blessings as you continue your career.
Thank you, Memory.
Yes, of course. I am not seeing any more questions, but that's okay.
Okay.
If you go back and look at this later, feel free to put it in there and we will send it over to Ian. But until next week, next Thursday, we'll be right back here at 12 o'clock for Science Division Live, and we will see you then. Have a good week. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.